Gorsadine.
Yes, sir. Garzadine.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
Garzadine.
Yes, sir.
Okay. Now, this is a matter of Garzadine versus Ernest Williams. And
Gorsadine.
Gorsadine.
Yes, sir. Garzadine. Yes, sir.
Garzadine.
Garzadine.
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Okay. Now, this is a matter of.
Sorry, I gotta stop. I gotta stop. I got distracted. Let me just say what I remember happened. At the last hearing, this was for endangering a security interest. Is that correct?
Yes, sir.
And there was an agreement reached that Mr. Williams needed 30 days and he would comply. And the petitioner agreed to the 30 days. And Mr. Williams said he needed the 30 days and everything would be taken care of. Is that correct?
Yes, sir.
Mr. Williams, is that your recollection?
Yes, sir.
So why have things been taken care of?
What we had going on at the time, I was in bankruptcy court and still is. So I needed to talk to the owner of the dealership, and he agreed at the time. And I talked to him again last week. He agreed. He was out of town when I called him. I talked to Ms. May. She said, well, whatever he agreed to, we'll come to a court today, file Chapter 7. So he continued getting paid for the vehicle. We had a 10-year relationship, and I didn't want to spoil that relationship. And Ms. May, she can vouch for that.
And is that's what's happening, ma'am?
No, sir. The owner actually was on his way here, but when we gave him the 30 days, he was supposed to either pay or return the car. But he filed Chapter 7. And from Chapter 7, you either have to give back the property or make an arrangement. And Mr. Williams did text me a copy of the Chapter 7, but I don't see where we were added and was filed March 1st of this month.
Let me ask you a question. So you're saying that your it's Atlanta fine cars?
Yes, sir.
Okay. They haven't been added as a creditor in the bankruptcy proceeding, is what you're telling. I mean, as a creditor in bankruptcy proceeding.
We don't have the paperwork, but Mr. L. Williams, he texted me the front page where he filed March 1st, which is, I guess, 2 weeks ago. So the manager want to see if you can reschedule for us, if you don't mind, so we can talk to his attorney, because his attorney never emailed, or the bankruptcy court has not sent us anything by mail where we were added as the creditor on Chapter 7. And Chapter 7, usually you either return the property or you make payments.
Okay, Miss Mary.
May. Oh.
No. I'm talking to my assistant. Miss Mary.
Yes, sir.
Can we add them, just place them on the next calendar that I'm appearing on doing pre-issuance?
Yeah, let me look and see what date that is. Give me a second, okay?
Okay.
Thank you.
And while we're waiting, Mr. Williams, if you have not, you need to, with your bankruptcy attorney, have them listed as creditors, because the criminal side is not the same as the civil side. And theoretically, you could still go to jail for something that's related to this before you filed for the bankruptcy, if that makes any sense to you.
Yes, sir.
And it's not something that I don't come into these hearings waiting to see who I can put in jail today. But people need to live by their word. They need to do what they say they're going to do. Things happen, but just do it in the right way, okay?
Yes, sir.
My intention is to give this opportunity. I'm going to have this placed back on my calendar because as you can see, still got a few brain cells, bobbling around in my head. Because in my opinion, the petitioner has been willing to try to resolve this matter. And as was mentioned before, there was a long-term relationship. Okay, it's April 11th. It's going to be the date, 8:30 in the morning. Now, for both of you, if this matter is resolved and worked out, you can notify the court. You don't have to keep coming back down.
Yes, sir.
So you can notify the court and we will take both sides. Now, it's not something where one person says one thing and we say, okay. We have to have an understanding that both sides are on the same page as to what they're doing. And then you don't have to come back down here.
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
Any questions?
If you don't mind, Judge, so in other words, Miss Mean, because I'm not even going to attempt to say your last name. If you get what you need to your satisfaction, you can email it to me and I will take you off the court since it's our calendar.
Yes, ma'am. And
Because she's the one that took out the issuance judge.
Yes.
So if she's satisfied, she can email me and we'll just take it off.
And the cases that it was two cases that she had, but it's basically she's acting on behalf of the owner of,
Manifying cars. Right.
yes.
and what is your email, please?
Mary.Moultrie at ClaytonCountyDA.gov.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, so will that work for everybody? And then Mr. Williams,
Williams.
I'll notify you if I receive something
Yes, ma'am.
from Ms. Mean.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
Thank you.
So both parties can be excused and we can get started with our regular calendar. Thank you both.
Thank you. Thank you,
I would
Judge.
like to.
Okay, do we have the parties in court, Mr. Hutchison?
Yes, Your Honor.
Okay. So today is March 14th. This is the 8:30 a.m. calendar for pre-issuance. My name is Brad Gardner. I'm going to be presiding over these matters today. These are matters where someone has filed a petition seeking an arrest warrant against someone else. And the status of the cases at this stage is that no warrant has been issued, but this hearing has been set down so that I can listen to the evidence and make a determination as to whether a warrant should issue. The respondent in the case is someone that does not have a duty to say anything. The petitioner is the person that has the obligation to put forth enough evidence so that I believe a crime may have occurred. So then the respondent still doesn't have to say anything, but I have to go forward and make a determination as to whether a warrant shall issue for the person's arrest. If I make that determination, the person will go into custody today. And so I need the respondent to understand that while you do not have an obligation to say anything here today, there may be a situation where if you fail to put forward any evidence, the case may be proven against you and you may go to jail. Now, I do my best to be fair. And what I mean by that is I will be honest with what I think and where I'm going so that I'm not, as I would call it, sandbagging. I'm not going to sandbag anybody. If I don't believe the petitioner has set forth sufficient evidence, I will say that so that the respondent understands that they should, at that point, probably not say anything, but it's your right to say whatever you want to say. Now, the petitioner and the respondent needs to understand that I may hear something from the petitioner that I believe the petitioner has committed a crime. And so even though the petitioner is here trying to get an arrest warrant issued for the respondent, the petitioner may say something that I hear is a crime. And if that's the case, I have the authority to place the petitioner in custody. So if, by way of example, and I'll say this, is, I don't see a lot of people with attorneys, and sometimes people believe all they have to do is go down to the courthouse and they can get what they want. But if you started a fight that the respondent defended themselves or were responding to the fight, I may decide that you are the person that needs to go into custody because you started the fight. It doesn't matter who filed. What matters is the evidence that I hear. So everyone will be placed under oath. I will give everyone the due respect that they deserve, and we'll move forward. Mr. Farmer, you are here. My understanding, it's the victim witness. I'm sorry, you're muted, Mr. Farmer.
Sir, I'm here representing the solicitor's office, victim services officer. I'm here in case any of these cases want to be mediated. I also have some withdrawal forms if anybody has decided they no longer want to pursue their case.
Okay. And thank you for Mr. Farmer. So these matters necessarily involves disputes between two individuals. Mr. Farmer is a person that the sides can sit down and they can speak about what happened, and he may have words of wisdom that you may want to take into consideration. And if those matters are resolved, then it's withdrawn and it moves on. I neglected to say, but I would normally say, I'm the person that when it's brought to my attention, I make a decision. And that decision, somebody's not going to like. And that goes with wearing, I call it the black dress. That goes with wearing the black dress. My job is to make the decision. Speaking with Mr. Farmer, you both as adults have agency over your lives, and you may be able to resolve whatever dispute you have, but it's something that you two as adults have been able to work through because you have a person like Mr. Farmer there as a mediator. And so you can hear from Mr. Farmer's position where you may think you are dead right. And he may bring something to your mind that you realize, yeah, the rest of the world don't see it that way. Generally, that's the judge's job. Judge's job is to try to keep things in the middle of the road the way the world sees it, not the way you see it. So each case, I'm about to call a calendar, with each case, if you want to have an opportunity to meet with Mr. Farmer, I will give you that opportunity. So if that is for either party, but both have to agree. If you announce that you want to mediate this, I'll set it aside and I'll let you meet with Mr. Farmer, and hopefully all of this stuff gets worked out. Okay, all right, let's get started. Position 1 is Kenyatta Purdue versus De'Ara Daniel.
Your Honor, both parties are absent.
Okay. So that's going to be a dismissal for warrant of prosecution. Position 2, Kevin Copeland versus Asia Alexander.
Your Honor, both parties are absent.
All right, that's going to be a dismissal for warrant of prosecution. Position 3, Danielle Hill versus Adriana Griffin.
Your Honor, the plaintiff, Ms. Hill, is present in the courtroom.
Okay,
Defendant is absent.
okay. So we'll come back to Ms. Hill. Position number 4 is Mikael Harris versus Sharice Jackson.
Your Honor, both parties are absent.
Okay, that'll be a dismissal for warrant of prosecution. Position 5, LaShawn Rivers versus Kelvin Stewart.
Your Honor, the plaintiff is here. Ms. Rivers is present. She has a witness. Mr. Sanders is outside the courtroom. The defendant, Calvin Stewart, is present with his attorney Mondelli. Excuse me.
Okay, and so I have on my calendar that Ms. Rivers was being represented by Karen Pass.
Your Honor, if it pleases the court, I can ask her. She said she don't have. Your Honor, she said she doesn't. Your Honor, she said she doesn't have one. No one.
Okay. Position number 6 is Richard Borger versus Ben Henry.
Your Honor, both parties are present.
Okay. Position 7 is LaQuana Howard versus Crystal Usher.
Your Honor, the plaintiff is here. Ms. Howard is present and the defendant is absent.
Okay. And we have Deja Morrison versus Brianna Jackson.
Your Honor, both parties are absent.
Okay, that'll be a dismissal for warrant of prosecution. Finally, Jasmine Wesley versus Raphael Mathis.
Your Honor, both parties are absent.
Okay, that'll be a dismissal for warrant of prosecution. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to start with the Rivers versus Stewart situation. We have Mr. Mondelli here, he's attorney. I try to get attorneys out of the way. And then Danielle Hill versus Adriana Griffin will be second. LaQuana Howard versus Crystal Usher will be third. And position 6, Borger versus Henry. Do either one of those parties want to take advantage of Mr. Farmer being present to discuss their matter?
Your Honor, to please the court, this is Ms. Rivers in the other room.
Okay.
When would you like her to bring her witness in?
First, I'm gonna find out what the witness may testify to, because I may not even need to hear this witness. But right now, Borger versus Henry, do they want to meet with Mr. Farmer?
Judge, are you able to hear me?
Yes, sir.
I've met with both judges. The defendant on that case, the plaintiff was wanting to meet. The defendant has decided he does not and wants to have a hearing.
So that's Mr. Henry saying he wants to have a hearing.
Yes, sir.
Can we bring Mr. Henry up
Yes, sir.
briefly? And you can say where you are. You can say where you are, Mr. Mondeli. You can say where you are.
Your Honor, here's Mr. Henry.
Good morning, Your Honor. How are you?
Good morning, Mr. Henry. Do you understand that the purpose of this hearing today is to decide whether you go to jail or not?
I absolutely do, Your Honor.
And you don't want to even have a conversation about whether the matter can be resolved. You're just gonna put it all on one side, whether I go to jail or I don't go to jail.
Your Honor, the solicitor spoke with me about what the petitioner was asking for. And it's my opinion that he's trying to leverage this in a civil case that's about to happen later on. And I say absolutely not. I will not do that. Yes, it's either I did something wrong or I leave.
Okay, I just wanted to make that clear. That's your decision. I respect your decision. You can go back and have a seat.
Thank you, Your Honor.
Thank you. Okay, this is position number 7. LaShawn Rivers versus Kelvin Stewart. And the case number is warrant number 2022 CW 02658. Mr. Stewart is here represented by attorney. Your last name is Mondeli, sir?
Yes, Your Honor, Thomas Mondeli.
Okay, it's a pleasure to meet you.
Pleasure to meet you, Judge.
Ms. Rivers, before we start, you have a witness.
Yes, sir. Yes, Your Honor, I do.
Can you proffer, meaning can you tell me what you expect the testimony of the witness to be?
To be a witness to my property being removed and being in a storage facility, which is one of the reasons that I'm here today.
Judge, just as a
Hold on, Ms. Mondeli. I'll let you speak. So is that not a fact that you cannot establish through your testimony?
Yes, Your Honor, I can. I just wanted to have that as well, the witness as well.
Okay. So when we start, I'm going to place you both, Mr. Stewart and yourself, under oath. That means that your testimony, if it's false, carries the potential penalty of perjury. So if you're going to testify to me that the light was red under oath, I don't need the passenger in the car to testify that the light was red under oath. I'm going to either believe it or not believe it. And I have this discussion up front because most people, they think I'm just going to bring a bunch of people in, that they're going to just say the same thing. And because 5 people said the same thing, that's more important than one person saying the same thing, which it really isn't. So I'm going to listen to the testimony, but I'm going to hold back on whether that witness is called or not. Okay.
Yes,
because
sir.
this is time that we're dealing with. Mr. Mondeli, I cut you off. What were you going to say, sir?
no problem, Judge. Just 2 matters. One, there is no dispute that the couch in question was moved to a storage unit. The question is, of course, what knowledge the petitioner had and whether that constituted a crime. We'll, of course, be objecting, and arguing on those points. Additionally, Judge, just to be clear, because I don't think staff brought it up, there is a witness for the defense as well, Mr. Stewart's brother, Reginald, who is in the hallway. This is a person, since you're seeking a proffer, Judge, who would be testifying about on the second issue about this 1978 Chevy truck, that there would be a history of shared ownership or shared payments in the car between the parties, and that therefore this is not a theft by deception. I'll defer to Your Honor at that point in time whether you wish to entertain the witness's testimony, obviously. And Judge, before we begin taking testimony, I would have one motion.
Yes, sir.
This question case first. Judge, we'd be moving to dismiss the warrants in their entirety. What may not be known to the court is that on January 31st of this year, a Miss Rivers was arrested. She was arrested pursuant to Clayton County Magistrate Court Warrant 2021 CW 1807, in which Kelvin Stewart, my client, was the petitioner. Miss Rivers was arrested for forgery first degree. She was taken into custody. That case remains, as my understanding, still open and pending. I would submit, Judge, that pursuant to the guidelines for applying for a warrant, Ms. Rivers was charged with the crime. She applied for this warrant after she was arrested, and she's applying for a warrant against the person who took out a warrant against her, which I believe should bar this hearing from going forward. I would ultimately submit, Judge, this is a civil dispute, but this cannot be pursued criminally, given that Ms. Rivers currently has open and pending felony charges in this jurisdiction against her.
Involving the same subject matter?
Involving forgery, Judge, not the same subject matter, but the same parties. This is retaliation.
Okay. Ms. Rivers, what is your response?
Your Honor, this is a totally different matter, and that has forced my hand to come to this point to file this criminal warrant, because Mr. Stewart has refused to allow me to get my property from the property that we both reside in. This is a totally different matter. I have tried on several occasions, Your Honor, and called the police just so I can have someone so it can be peaceful, because he's a very violent person. And I will prove that today. That's why I am here today, because
Let me stop you 1 second, Ms. Rivers, and this happens a lot. As a judge, when you say the word, this is a violent person, and we're not talking about a matter of violence, that just washes through my brain. I'm not here to make value judgments on whether someone is a good person or a bad person. I'm here to decide facts. So yes. I don't know Mr. Stewart, and I don't know you. And if this is not a matter dealing with violence, I don't care that he's a violent person, to be honest with you. That just, and Mr. Stewart.
Sure.
And I'm going to tell the both of you. The fact that you may have had a prior relationship, and the fact that you may not like each other, this is not the forum to carry that out. This is not the forum. So I'm not going to listen to how bad of a person she is, and then I'm not going to listen to how bad of a person you are. I'm here to decide the matter that is before me. Okay, so and I gotta set those ground rules, because people think I have my own thoughts, but I'm not here to referee who's the better person or who likes each other better, or I'm not here to do that. So Mr. Mondelli, I'm going to take your motion on advisement. I'm going to listen to what Ms. Rivers has to say before I make a determination on that.
Certainly, Judge. Thank you.
You're welcome. Now, Ms. Rivers, would you raise your right hand for me, please? And Ms. Stewart, would you raise your right hand for me, please? Do you both swear or affirm any statements you make during this proceeding shall be the truth, the whole truth, so help you God?
I do.
Okay, Ms. Rivers, you're the petitioner in this case, and you have the burden of production and persuasion. And what that means is you have to produce sufficient evidence that a crime has been committed such that Mr. Stewart is in a position of having to respond. Because if you don't persuade me that a crime has been committed, Mr. Stewart doesn't have to say anything.
Yes, Your
So
Honor.
go ahead. Go ahead, ma'am.
Okay. Your Honor, I'm in court today to show cause for a warrant to be issued for Kelvin Stewart for criminal trespass and theft by deception.
Okay, let's start with criminal trespass.
Okay. Kelvin Stewart removed, let me start with this, Your Honor. Kelvin Stewart and I purchased a home located at 3551 Northgate Cove in Ellenwood, Georgia, on 30294 around November 2007. Then Mr. Stewart was arrested on or about March 2008 for child molestation against my niece.
Objection.
He was convicted.
Objection.
Your Honor,
There's no
Hold
relevant.
on.
information of what happened.
Hold, ma'am. So I sustain the objection. What I said before, I don't care if the child molestation is related to the criminal trespass, which I can't understand how it could be. Then it becomes, ma'am,
Yes,
listen.
Yes.
Then it becomes a material issue.
Okay.
But if it's just something to try to say that this person is bad character, I don't care. So you and Mr. Stewart purchased a home. Were the two of you married at the time that you?
Yes, Your Honor, we were married at the time.
Okay.
Okay, well, I wanted to let it be known that he was arrested from 2003 to 2010.
Ma'am.
No, I mean, as far as
ma'am, when I start talking, you stop talking, and I guarantee you, I'm going to let you speak. There's been an objection made, and I'm assuming the objection is on relevance.
Correct, Judge.
Okay, so Ms. Rivers, how is the allegation that he was arrested relevant to the contention that he committed the act of criminal trespass?
Because I had access to the home. While he was incarcerated, I had access to the home the entire time. Now.
Wait a minute, I don't understand that.
Okay.
You're married and you both bought the home. How did you not have access to the home?
Well, I wanted to make, because we both have access to the home. We both still own the home today.
So how is the?
And I have property.
Okay. No. Let me. I'm taking the fact as true that he's arrested for whatever. How is that relevant to access to the home?
I'm just trying to establish that we both had access to the home.
Which ma'am, which you established when you said that you both purchased the home.
Okay, Your Honor, I apologize.
Ma'am, yes. And I'm gonna say this again. The fact that we're here, everybody that I see every day, they don't like each other. And they come in and they want to throw zings at each other. I don't care about that. I'm not here to carry out whatever the two of you decided to be together to cohabitate and it didn't work out. I don't care. Criminal trespass. Let's stick to that. And maybe I should ask you this. Can you give me a brief statement as to how he committed the offense of criminal trespass?
Yes, Your Honor. When I visited the residence at 3551 on December 13th, 2020, I went over there. And Mr. Stewart told me that he had removed my sofa without my permission and handed me a card with the storage facility of iStorage, telling me that I had to start making the payments to the iStorage for my sofa being in the storage. So at that time, I called the police because we got into a heated argument for him removing my sofa without my permission.
Let me ask you this question. Were you still married at the time?
No, we were divorced
Why was the sofa still in his possession if the two of you were divorced?
because both of our names are still on the mortgage for that house. That's an
Who got-
ongoing matter.
Who got the house as a part of the divorce?
The house was not in the divorce because the divorce happened while he was incarcerated.
I asked if you purchased a house, if you were married when the house was purchased, and you said yes.
Yes, we were at that time.
Stop. That to me, with my little bit of legal understanding, means that the house is marital property. And you're telling me that you got a divorce, and it sounds like you said he was incarcerated, so he didn't participate in the divorce?
No, because I filed a divorce by publication.
And you didn't tell the judge that the house was marital property.
Correct.
So you may have engaged in a crime yourself. Do you want me to explain?
Yes.
So laws have changed, and you can, if a person is incarcerated, you can get a divorce from that person. But it doesn't mean that you get to come into court and say whatever you want to say. If the house was bought during the pendency of the marriage, the house is marital property. If you filed for a divorce by publication and you did not inform the court that the house was indeed marital property, which he would be entitled to his share of the marital property, you may have defrauded the court. And I'm not asking you to respond because, like I said before, either person can go to jail. So you are attempting to get a criminal trespass warrant for his arrest for a couch that you said is your couch. That was the couch bought before the two of you were married or during your marriage?
No, after we were divorced. Your Honor, we were divorced in 2010.
Okay. All right. Is there anything you want to tell me other about the criminal trespass? Because if he gave you a notification as to where this couch is, that the couch has been placed in storage, I don't see how he's depriving you of use of that couch.
He removed it he removed the property from the residence without my permission. It was already there.
And you filed for a divorce without telling the court that the house is marital property. See how this works?
Yes, Your Honor.
Everybody thinks they're right.
Correct, Your Honor.
Until they start spilling the beans. Okay, let's move from criminal trespass to what's the other claim?
The other claim is the criminal trespass, theft by deception for my truck, as well as criminal trespass for that truck as well. The truck is in my name only. And I called the police on several occasions on January the 8th and January the 9th. And I have the certified police reports as well as the body cam footage of the incident of when
was the truck purchased?
The truck was purchased in 2014.
Was that during the marriage or after the marriage?
After the marriage.
The truck is registered in your name?
Yes, Your Honor. I have the title here in my possession.
And the theft by deception, can you explain how that occurred in your opinion?
He removed the engine out of the original engine that I had in the vehicle. He removed it out of there and put another engine in there. And said it was his truck and that he won't give it to me. And I have
Hold on. You said the truck is registered in your name and you have the title.
Yes, Your Honor.
So he can say whatever he wants, but the legal documents say the truck belongs to you, correct?
Yes, Your Honor.
What have you done to recover the truck?
I called the police and he told them no, I could not get my vehicle. And the police told me to leave. On the second occasion, the first time I went to the police, they made him give me my keys because they pulled up the registration on the vehicle and saw that I was the owner of the vehicle. That was on January the 8th. And the January the 9th, I came to the home, I called the police, I knocked on the door. He wouldn't let me, he told me I wasn't getting in the truck. So I called the police again. The police officer then told me it was marital property and to wait to go to court and deal with it in court. So they would not let me get my vehicle after they saw that I was still the registered owner of the vehicle. As well as they saw the report from the officer the day before stating that they told him to give me my vehicle and made him give me my keys back because they advised him that it was criminal trespass if he would not do that.
So let me ask you this, Ms. Rivers. Is it your intent to try to regain use and possession of the truck?
Yes, Your Honor.
How do you do that through a criminal process?
To get him arrested so that I can go get my vehicle.
So while he's in custody,
because the police has said they're not going to keep coming out there for me calling the police in order to get my vehicle.
no, and you know why? And I say this to people all the time, and my assistant has heard this. There are people in this county that got guns pointed in their face. There's people in this county that are getting their back door kicked in. The police need to be at those locations. They don't need to be refereeing fights between adults. But adults believe that the police are there to, if I get mad or I get upset, I'm gonna call the police. Ma'am, all I can do, if I place Mr. Stewart in custody today and you were to go get that truck, you would probably get placed in custody afterwards.
Why would I get placed in custody?
This isn't the place to have this dispute. If the truck belongs to you and he is wrongfully holding the truck from you, send a demand letter and then sue the mess out of him and ask for punitive damages, ask for attorney's fees, ask for everything. That's how you deal with the dispute over property. It doesn't make it a criminal matter. It makes it a matter that is subject to court intervention, but it's through the civil process. Not, you can give me, let's say, I asked you to give me $500 because I have a whatever, something is coming up. And I say, I promise I'm gonna pay you back. And I don't pay you back. That's not a criminal matter. That's a civil matter. And you may feel as though you were deceived because I promised to pay you back, but it doesn't convert it to a criminal matter. It's a civil matter. That's why I encourage people, when you meet somebody, before you get all in your feelings or whatever, you make certain that that person that you are meeting is a person that will hold their word. is a person that is worth being around. Guarantee you. I've met a bunch of these people that I hear from them and I stay away from them. I stay away from them because I know ain't nothing good coming from that person. We're in an age today where people don't do that. And then the first thing they do is they call the police. And I'm telling you, I feel bad for law enforcement officers because they can't reject the call. They can't put it on mute. They can't block the call. They get a call, they got to come out. And then they have to hear that everything that's going on. So, ma'am, if there's not anything else that you're telling me about this, I'm going to grant Mr. Mondelli's motion and dismiss this case. And this matter needs to be taken care of through civil litigation. Is there anything else that I'm missing?
I was under pressure, it was criminal trespass for him not allowing me to retrieve my vehicle that I own. And I don't like calling the police as well either, Your Honor, because I feel like they're under enough scrutiny as it is with trying to be safe themselves and keep the peace. But I like peace as well, Your Honor. And I don't feel that it's fair that I have to even get to resort to this in order to retrieve my own vehicle that belongs to me, that I have ownership of. That's just, I don't understand how that's not criminal trespass, Your Honor. I just don't. I understand what you're saying, and I appreciate you, a wonderful judge. I just don't understand that, Your Honor.
Tell me, under what theory is this criminal trespass as it relates to the vehicle?
He would not allow me to retrieve my vehicle. Me asking nicely, and I have the body cam footage where you can see for yourself. So you can see what I'm talking about. It's not just my word against his word. You can see from yourself from the officer's body cam footage and make a determination yourself to understand how I feel and why I'm here. You will definitely, once you review the body cam footage, you will understand because that's biased. That's from the court, from the officer, Your Honor.
Let me ask you this. You said you have the title to the vehicle.
Yes, Your Honor.
You have the registration to the vehicle.
Yes, Your Honor.
Is the
I
vehicle?
don't have the registration with me. I only brought the title.
No, I'm not asking if you have it with you. I'm asking, is the insurance for the vehicle in your name?
I don't have insurance because it's in the garage. I don't have possession of it. It's been in the garage for a while.
So, ma'am, I have a 1968 F-100 pickup truck that has not moved for 10 years and is insured. I don't understand how you do not see that if you have these elements of ownership, file a lawsuit, attach the documents, get a judge to sign an order saying this truck belongs to you, and ask for money. Ask for the truck and ask for money. If what you've told me is true today, you're 85% down to getting the judgment, probably close to 90% getting the civil judgment to get that truck back. Trying to put him in jail because you believe the truck, that's and I say it all the time, and some people get mad, but that's adults acting like children. You know what? I'm gonna get him locked up. He'll be locked up and he won't do that to me again. Sue him. You got the stuff, sue him. And then that's where a judge like me, I can say, okay, I see these documents, Mr. Stewart. Why you won't get this lady this truck back? Now he has to explain to me why he's holding on to a truck that's registered to you, that you have the title, and it's insured by you. And by your testimony, it was purchased after the marriage. So now you just put your documents on the table, and I'm asking him questions. I'm not asking you questions. And if he's, well, I was mad and she did this or she did that. Jurisdictional limit in magistrate court is $15,000. And if he wants to go down that road, that's fine. I mean, if it's something in state court, he wants to go down that road, that's fine. But it at least is putting the issue forefront so the court can deal with it. And it's not tangential to a dispute that started somewhere else and it just becomes something else. So do you understand, ma'am, that you do have an avenue based upon the testimony that you provided here today, but the avenue is not to go through the manner that you've chosen? So, and again, I take everything that you've told me as 100% true. There's an avenue for you. I'm going to grant Mr. Mondale's motion. I don't need to hear testimony from Mr. Stewart. This matter is going to be dismissed. And Ms. Rivers, if everything you've said is true, I hope you follow through with the ways of that you can get.
I will.
Recovery.
Yes,
Okay.
thank you.
So I'm gonna, Mr. Mondale, would you walk out, please, with your client? This matter is gonna be dismissed. Ms. Rivers, I'm gonna ask you to wait 5 minutes because I don't like, people stuff will start up in the parking lot. So, Mr. Mondale, you and your client are free to go.
Thank you, Judge.
Thank you, Your Honor.
Okay. Now, the next matter that I'm going to deal with is position number 3, Danielle Hill versus Adriana Griffin. And I understand that Ms. Griffin is not present and Ms. Hill.
Your Honor,
Yes, sir.
if it please the court, Ms. Hill just went to the restroom. She'll be right back here shortly.
Okay. So let's bring up Ms. Howard.
All right, please come forward.
Okay.
Good morning.
Good morning, Ms. Howard. Can you hear me, ma'am?
Yes, sir.
Okay. This is position number 7 on the calendar, Laquana Howard versus Crystal Usher. And warrant number is 2022 CW 02871. I'm looking at the address that was provided in the on the notice. And my understanding, Ms. Howard, and correct me if I'm wrong, is that you're the person that wrote down this address for Crystal Usher as 2567 Whites Mills Road, Decatur, Georgia, 30034.
Yes, sir.
And let me place you on the oath. Raise your right hand for me, please. Do you swear affirming the statements you make during this proceeding on truth, the whole truth, so help you God?
Yes, sir.
And so you're swearing now under oath that this address is the correct address.
Yes.
And how do you know this address to be the correct address?
Her children's father, he gave me the address. And
Hold on, I'm sorry. Her children's father gave you the address.
yes, sir.
Why would he give you the address?
He was aware that she has been violently always wanted to attack me, and he was feeling that I needed to go forward with legal proceedings against her.
What's the children's father's name?
Adrian Bryant.
What's his relationship to you?
He's my ex now.
When did he become your ex?
It's been maybe 3 months. We've been on and off, Your Honor, because of this situation. The situation has been, detrimental to our relationship. It's been a lot. We've known each other for 4 years, on and off, like I say, but she has always been a problem. So it kind of had me to the point where I really did not have a healthy relationship with them. It didn't matter how much I tried or try to care for their children. Their children stayed with me a couple of times. And I'm just, trying to help her and things like that, even though we never really actually got along. Just trying to help out a mother, supposedly. Just trying to do the right thing. And even that was not even good enough. And he, as a man, knew that I was standing in a position I was able to help because I cared for him. So of course I care for the children too as well. But as a woman, she didn't see the things that I was trying to do. I guess she just never wanted us together. So since I've known her, she's always threatened me, always. But she's been a person that has that never been able to get herself together. She's moved different places, never had really a stable address, because she's always lived with different people and things like that.
And so when you say that ever since you've known her, she's been that way, so that's been at least 4 years?
I would say at the beginning, really, we didn't have an interaction. She knew of me. We didn't really was able to talk face to face or anything like that, because she would never wanted to meet with me or anything, even though she may have known her children could have went out with me on recreation with my child, but she told him that she just never wanted to mutually meet with me.
Miss Howard, you seem to be a perfectly lovely lady to me. I don't understand why you would put up with that at all.
You know what, Your Honor? I ask myself that all the time. Even my baby girl, she asks me to, and I say, it could just. I thought that maybe I loved a man that I felt at the time were treating me respectfully as a woman and wanted to do better for herself and see the good in me. And I liked the idea that the thought that maybe that we could have built something, but I knew that this was too much, and it seemed as if he didn't seem like he wanted to let me go either. And I told him, he was saying, well, I can do anything. I can try to help you. I don't want anything to do with it. And I always told him, I say, hey, I would never tell a man to walk away from his children. Never do that. Because if you want to build with us, I said, maybe you need to find a way to, she has to have custody of your kids. You just need to find a way. Maybe she just needs some help. Let's try to find a way to get her some help, because he always say she does have mental she seems mental. I said, well, let's try to find a way to get her some help because the children still loves her. You get what I mean? But I said, it's unhealthy for my child. So love is what I was standing for, sir, at the time.
I understand, and you know, I have my beliefs, and my belief is based upon what you said. As a man, it was his job to make certain that the two of you were separate. If it couldn't be worked out, hey, can be worked out.
Yes, sir.
But what are the charges that you're seeking here today?
I don't know, Your Honor. I probably should have looked more into that. I know that trespassing, aggravated stalking.
Let me stop you. Aggravated stalking, is there an order in place or something where she's
Yes.
not? What's that order?
Well, I did go further to put a TPO out on her. They were giving me a run.
And I'm sorry, and I will cut you off from time to time just because it helps me, but I will allow you to say whatever you want to say. The
Yes, sir.
TPO that was obtained in DeKalb County or Clayton County?
You know what, Your Honor, I did it in both counties, and I just found out Clayton does not honor it because she is not a resident of Clayton County. She's a resident of DeKalb County. So I think the one in Clayton just pretty much just got dismissed, I'm guessing. Because when I found
On jurisdictional grounds. So, but was the one in DeKalb County issued?
it's for some reason, sir, it's still in processing.
I'm sorry, you said it's still in process?
Yes, sir. They're giving me, they're sending me different emails and stuff like that, but different counties run totally different. Even when I went to go do the legwork myself, a lot of things is online, but I try to go do the legwork myself and go to different places, and it gave me a lot of runaround. This is almost for 6 months, because I was trying to do it last year and the year before that, and it was a lot to do, especially when I didn't have an address. But DeKalb County is now handling everything, and I gave them the case for Clayton, so they're just putting everything all together. The case number here.
Okay, so the aggravated stalking. Tell me the circumstances of the contact or communication. Where did it occur?
It occurred at my address, which is 41 Crystal River, and that's in Riverdale, Georgia. The night, early morning, late night, early morning. He was at my home because he doesn't stay in Georgia now, but he travels. So that night he was at my home.
On what day?
This was January 30th.
Okay.
January 30th, sir. And on this day, which around maybe roughly between 3:30 to about 4:30 a.m., getting random calls, back to back, just obsessive calls, text messaging. But at this point, it woke me up. Like I said, the next day, of course, this following day, this is when I get up, get ready for work, get my daughter ready for school, take her to school, different things like that. So of course, at this time we're sleeping.
So the calls were coming to his phone.
Yes, sir. And
okay.
that's what actually woke me up, because they were back to back obsessively. Oh my goodness. And I kept saying something's not right. And then I try to like nudge him and say, hey, you need to check this phone, because something is just not right for someone to be just calling constantly back to back. So of course the number of calls were like 30 something calls. Okay. And he was like, well, I'm just ignoring him because, she doesn't want anything. And I'm just like, anything could be going on at this point. You never know. So let's, just try to check or something. By this time, she was obviously upset. And he was even trying to give her, because she was kept asking him in the messaging, asking him, where are you? I need $10 for some Pampers or something like that. And I'm thinking like, okay, $10. Okay, you know what? Do I need to just give her the money? I mean, what is it? If it's something, oh no, don't worry about it. I'm like, okay, I'm just trying to help. So then after that, she sent the message in, which these are the messages that he forwarded to my phone. I gave to the officer to put in the case. And the messages were saying, don't worry, I know where you are and I'm on the way. And then she put my address down there, 41 Crystal River, is this right? Is this right? Is this right? Well, doesn't matter. I'm on the way. Shortly after that, Your Honor, shots fired. Doom, 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 through the front door. Through the front door, shots fired. It was a knock. This is the thing. It was.
Hold on 1 second, because I'm getting lost in the story.
Sorry.
You said there were shots fired at the door and there was a knock. So
it was a knock first, sir. I'm sorry.
It was a knock first, and then there were shots fired
through the front door. Yes, sir.
But you don't know who shot through the front door.
Well, she did ask him to, when she was arguing with him, she did tell him you might want to check on your BITCH and her child because she may be dead. And I had already for a while, Your Honor, I'm gonna be honest with you, for a while, I did not know the woman had knew my address. But what happened was Bill got sent to his mom, well, she's deceased now, she just died 2 months ago, and it had my address on it. He did think that she went through the mother's mail because she was bedridden. And the kids used to have, she used to have legal custody of the kids, and she went through mail randomly. But this is a couple of years ago, which I never knew because I still stay in the same home. And I never knew. I was wondering one morning when I got up, I was wondering if a vehicle of mine had like slash marks, to where it looked like someone just cut with the object through the paint. And I kind of bypassed it because I kept saying, where did these marks? So when my mom looked at it, she was like, who came and cut your car? And, put slash mark in the paint. And I was like, and I'm thinking to myself, this woman have been down here, that's like, oh, that's a warning, maybe. And I should have been more cautious then because like I said, she have older children and they've been to my home. And it always seemed like to put me in a position. So,
so is it possible that she knew where you live because the older children had been to your home?
You know what, Your Honor? One of my best friends and my mom and my family actually said that too. They actually was telling me, stop being so nice to the children because, the children may not want you guys together. And I'm almost guaranteed they may have told their mom where you stay because they really don't owe no loyalty to you. And I say, you know what? They really don't. It doesn't matter how much I try to be nice and do things for them and don't want them in the street and from house to house and be there for those kids. But I say,
Miss Howard, that's sometimes the answer is the simplest thing. You're the person that's interfering with their father and their mother being together. In their mind, is it possible, Miss Howard, that he was having both of you at the same time?
Honestly, I can't even answer that question because that's, men and women do things. So honestly, I can't say that, they were intimate or anything. I didn't want to believe it if it was going on anyway, but even if that was going on, is it still right to want to still cause harm on me and my child?
No, it's not. It's not, and that's not the point that I'm getting to.
Okay.
the point that I'm getting to is that so many times the people that come before me, they don't see the red flags. It's the red flags are just sitting there and they're just blinking. They're just ignoring the red flags. So I'm gonna tell you this, Ms. Howard. Who you choose to be in a relationship with, that's up to you. But the baggage that you choose to carry for that relationship is also up to you. So if you want to take on other people's trauma, distrust, everything else, and say, well, I'm just trying to help this person. You know, they say God loves a child that helps his own.
As a
Do
do you believe that when you are with someone, it's just like so many people meet different people, and you don't say, hey, I don't want to deal with you because you have kids, or you was in a previous relationship. You just hope for the best to think that, hey, it may work. I've never been in anything like this because I was married years ago after I got out of high school, and me and my high school sweetheart, which is my daughter's father, we were married out of high school, and we went into the Marines. So I haven't in a relationship to where I've had a man that had children. So because of what was going on, I didn't want to back out and say, I'm just gonna just give up right away, because it wasn't seeming as if it was so bad. I was just trying to.
If you can carry anything from today, I want you to carry this with you. Two things. Life is easy. Human beings make it hard. And you don't have to be in a situation where things are hard. If someone is not making your life easier, that person is making your life harder. And it's just, and that's, as a judge, I'm looking at bright lines, and I'm looking at stuff. Like I say, I don't care, because I don't know you personally. So it's not like I'm making a decision because I want to help you, I want to hurt you, or anything like that. So when I see people come before me, and I try to get to the heart of the matter, so that we can hopefully leave from this experience being a better person and making better decisions. And it's not necessarily being a better person, but sometimes it's making better decisions. So let's get off the aggravated stalking. What else? What other incidents are you here for as it relates to Miss Usher?
It's that, and it's the I don't know what it's called when someone is it also stalking when they're calling you, making threatening calls and messages and things like that of that nature.
Are you saying that you've been receiving calls from Miss Usher directly, and they were threatening?
Yes.
On your phone, not on the other guy's phone, but on your
No, yes, on my phone. See, I had to block her. That's how much it was coming back. Because I didn't change the number. I just blocked her. But then I would know that the private calls, the unknown numbers, because I blocked her from my phone. And she would, call all the time, constantly. Always. And even when she would always tell me, like, when I see you, it's gonna be me and you, and I carry a gun, so I'm like, okay. I'm like, all right. So I'm like, and I told her, I said, so what is the issue? Is that serious? Oh, you're with him. This is that another. So I'm thinking to myself, okay, this is something I definitely have to back out of.
Can you give me the dates of these phone calls?
Yes, this was last year. between April of 21 through June 21. Then I had calls from and that was in 19. I got them all the way back from 2019 in December. 2020, I'm sorry.
Okay, go ahead.
Mm-hmm. And then
No, I was saying, go ahead.
Oh, what is it? You want me to proceed, Your Honor?
Yes, ma'am. I'm sorry. I think I kind of cut you off, but I was just telling you you can feel free to go ahead and proceed.
Yes, sir. So even with that being said, we have encountered with each other, and her two children were at my home, and I was coming to get money from him. He was around her because they have five children, and I was coming.
You said you were coming to get money from him?
Yes.
Can you explain the purpose of that?
Well, yeah, because his children was at my house and I needed money from him so that we were able to get more food. It was just for that day, and I.
Uh-oh. You're buffering a little bit.
Oh, I'm sorry. Is it because?
Uh-oh. I think it's Mr. Farmer, are you over there taking up our bandwidth, watching videos? They're both frozen.
I was gonna say they're both frozen.
Yeah. Uh-oh. Okay. Can you guys hear me now?
Yes, Sean.
I'm gonna blame Mr. Farmer. I know you're over there playing video games while taking up all the bandwidth. Uh-oh.
Oh, it's buffering.
Yeah, it's buffering.
Something all Judge.
What did you say, Maurice?
They're doing something outside in the hallway.
Oh,
okay.
Mm-hmm.
Miss Howard,
Yes, sir.
it looks like when there was gunfire at your house, did you call the police related to that?
Yes.
And the response for the police was what?
Well, they just got the recordings of, like pictures and stuff like that of, of the home and different things like that. And I gave them the messagings, the text messaging from that night and the thread of the calls. And their response was that I needed to, they was like, you definitely take out a TPO out on her. My actually was giving them a statement, my baby girl, because she's 11. She was very afraid, because we had to go and stay somewhere else for a while with family and stuff like that. So they knew I was scared, especially when someone they have nothing to live for. So they were saying, yeah, you definitely need to try to get some protection, go to the court, get some legal documents on her. Officer Jackson was one of the males that took the report, and he was just definitely like, I don't understand it, what's going on, what are you doing? But you definitely need to leave the situation and go and get you some legal documents on her. you know, that's how I knew about filing for the warrant and everything like that. Because I was told she wasn't going to stop.
I think sometimes people take that a little too far.
Yes.
The way that things are kind of tied up. Greatest part about being an American citizen is that you get a choice in how you want to live your life. And with the choice comes responsibility. And what I've heard from you so far is that you chose to be with a guy for at least 4 years that had a crazy baby mama. And you got to think about, he had children with her. So whatever she was doing was normal to him. And if that's not the way you live your life, you have to understand that the way he lives his life is with drama. And apparently brought that drama to your doorstep. Tell me what is the what's going on right now with the TPO that you filed in DeKalb? Because I heard it was filed, but it doesn't seem like you. It seems like you're at the ex parte stage, that you haven't had a hearing on.
Yes, I haven't had a hearing on it yet, Your Honor. Like I said, I started doing the legwork myself before I had to get a chance to talk to the advocate. Their process over there in DeKalb is a little different from how we do over here in Clayton.
Right.
You know, everybody does the online thing too as well, but DeKalb is a little bit more, they're branched out a little bit. I don't know if you know about their system, but they have buildings here and you got to go here, everything
right.
together. So it was madness to try to actually get in the right direction. Once I did all that running around, it was, at the end of it all, was like, okay, you know, you really have to just get online and then wait for an advocate to call you, and then you go through everything. So that's where we're at.
Ms. Howard, I grew up in DeKalb County.
Okay.
Until 2002, most of my life had been spent in South DeKalb County, so I understand what you're talking about.
Yeah.
What I'm trying to do is help get you to where you need to be.
Well, I'm gonna be honest, Your Honor. I'm gonna be honest. I've been trying to find me another place to stay, which is gonna cost me, you know, money to move. Certain, because I'm in college now too, so I'm paying for my own tuition to graduate this year for internal investigations. That's what I'm in college for my last year. So it's kind of expensive. So it's a lot that I'm going through. But particularly now, I don't feel safe. She even made a threatening, it's so weird because she made a threatening, a false allegation one time. That's how I knew. This was October 15th. This is on my baby girl's birthday. And we were having like a small get together, me and the family, about 7 p.m. that night. And
what day was this?
October the 15th, 2000.
And so this guy was there?
Oh, no, he wasn't
okay.
there. But see, this is the weird part because she must have thought he was there. Clayton County Police came maybe like 12 officers. You know, we're having the kids in there. They're cutting cake. We're dancing. I'm like, everybody looking outside. I'm thinking like, wait a minute, which one of these neighbors that I got in trouble now? To where, the Clayton County officers there deep on the streets, today. I'm like, what's going on? Kind of find out they all coming to my house. I'm like, what's going on, officers? I come outside, this woman, and I knew the voice immediately. This woman on there, oh, she's my sister, and she has something's wrong at the house. She gave his name as her name, Adrian, because his name is Adrian. She gave his name as her name. And I'm telling the officer, I'm like, officer, this woman is deranged. I don't have any sisters. I don't know what this woman is talking about. At that point, she was just trying to find every kind of way to, you know, I don't even know what her aim was that day, you know. But and I told the officer, "Oh, hey, you know, I know what voice this is, and I know who that person is on your radio, actually giving you guys instructions." And she doesn't know anything that she's talking about. If anything, I'm afraid of this woman. And she knows my address, and she's guys false lies. And it came right through Clayton County, and they just came. I'm like, I never knew that you can do that, to where you can call and say, you know, check on the welfare of someone. And then
They call it swatting. There's a term for it.
it's
Let me say this to you. I'm
Yes,
not
sir.
going to issue a warrant for Miss Usher's arrest. I can't understand
Okay.
the stage as it relates to this aggravated stalking
Mhm.
petition. I would encourage you to pursue the TPO in DeKalb if that's what you want to do. But I'm going to tell you, my knowledge, skill, and training tells me you leave this guy alone, your problem's going to go away. I don't, unless there's something that I've missed and that you haven't told me, where you and this lady clearly have like a problem.
Her problem.
In my opinion, the two of you are fighting over yesterday's garbage. And I'm not saying you're fighting over it, but you've been picking the garbage up, and she clearly wants to fight with the garbage because that's where she has children by this person. But you're worth more than that, Miss Howard, and you really have to understand that.
Okay.
Do you have any questions about my ruling?
Sorry, Your Honor, because my question is, even just the evidence that, I mean, well, you know, the evidence that I presented to the officer and things like that, I don't understand how this does not help. I mean, even though that I know that I deal with someone that has children, who's to say this can happen again? So does a woman not deal with a man that has children and the mother may not want? There's so many cases like that. You get what I mean? But justice, sir.
So I'll tell you, I take it very seriously, taking somebody's liberty away and placing them in a jail cell. That's the life, liberty, and property. Again, American citizens. Take somebody's life, you take their liberty, you take their property. Those are the things that are inherent in there. You have given testimony that I can probably presume that Miss Usher may have been the person. But I don't have evidence that she, for example, the shooting incident. And whenever law enforcement has been called to a scene and law enforcement doesn't make an arrest, I don't go behind law enforcement. I wasn't at the scene. I didn't take any statements. I didn't discuss with any witness. So I'm a judge sitting on a bench, and I don't try to believe that I'm smarter than the person that went out there. And I take it very seriously when law enforcement has been called and they investigate. And you may not know this, but one of the biggest sort of cop-outs is when they say, go get a TPO, or maybe you can go get a warrant. That means they're not willing to do it. But if you want to pursue it, they give you that, hey, you go do whatever you want to do, but you have the right to do. You've taken steps in DeKalb where it appears as though this is where all of this stuff should be centered, because, for example, the phone calls, jurisdiction lies where the call was sent or where the call was received. It could be in either one of those places. If you believe that she's been sending these phone calls or she's been calling you on these type of situations, for me, I want a trained investigator, detective, someone that can pull phone records, that can say it was received on this date, and I can track it. Not that I got a call from a block number, but I know it was Brad Gardner that did it. That's, it doesn't make the situation better for you, but at the same time, we spend a whole bunch of money for people to get the be able to do the things to investigate. So I leave it in the hands of the investigators to investigate and bring it to me. Everything that you've said to me so far is centered around this person. And it's your decision whether you want to be around that person and have the craziness. Because you have a right to feel safe. You have a right to not be bothered. But if you go around kicking the hornet's nest, you're going to get stung. Most people, if you saw a snake on the ground, most people, they take off running. I don't want anything to do with that snake. But in relationships, it's a snake with 2 legs and arms in the head, and people just, oh, well, I know it's a snake, but it's, and then they start getting bit. And then like, can somebody stop this snake from biting me? Yes, you. You. So I don't take it lightly, man. I do not. I do not. But I try to bring order back to the world. So this situation is this guy, this lady, and you. And it sounds from your testimony that this lady may be doing certain things. And this lady is based in DeKalb. You have the phone calls, you have the phone records. Make a incident report in DeKalb. Give them your phone records. Give them your phone records. And I'm going to tell you something that you may not realize. I have done first appearance a lot, which people getting arrested. And they come to court the next morning. Generally, 40% of the first appearance calendar is people having disputes with their boyfriend, girlfriend, somebody else. They saw a text on a cell phone, they throw the cell phone down. And in my opinion, while you also have the right, to feel safe and secure, you also have to steer clear of craziness. And this is crazy. This is crazy. I mean, this person, everything that you've said to me today, it was incumbent upon the man in your life that you were dating to stop all of this. And the fact that he didn't stop all of this and it went on for more than 4 years tells me, based upon my training, that he was just he was dealing with both of you at the same time. And so he never cut the tree with her. And you're a nice person, his kids can come over and all of this stuff. And you just got placed in the middle of something that you shouldn't have been in the middle of. So as it relates to this, I'm going to dismiss this as it relates to the TPO you have in DeKalb, I would encourage you, if you want to move forward with that, to move forward with it. You have a daughter, you're in college, and you appear again to be a perfectly lovely lady. From my position, you have a lot more in life than dealing with somebody else's garbage. But if you want to do that, that's a choice that you can make.
Thank you.
Okay, man. And I do feel sorry that you have to go through this, but I would encourage you to, as best as possible, remove yourself from the situation. If he has anything that's still at your house, you tell him he has until X date to come get it, or you're going to send it off to the Goodwill. I would encourage you to cut your ties.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome. Do we have Ms. Hill?
Your Honor,
Yes, sir.
if it pleases the court, I had told you earlier that she had wanted to use the restroom. She never returned back to court.
Okay. Danielle Hill, please make an announcement or your matter will be dismissed. Do you hear an announcement?
Oh, Your Honor.
Okay, it's going to be dismissed for want of prosecution. So that we have one more matter. Mr. Borger versus Mr. Henry.
Okay, I'll have to come forward, Your Honor.
Okay.
You have a seat right here. Mr. Board, follow me, please. Your Honor, this is Mr. Boyer.
Okay. Is it Borger or Boyer?
Borger.
Borger. Okay. Mr. Borger and Mr. Henry, please raise your right hand for me, please. Do you swear affirm in the statements you make during this proceeding shall be the truth, the whole truth, so help you God?
I do.
For the record, I'm calling case number 2022 CW 02870. Mr. Borger, you're the petitioner in this matter. You have the burden of proof and persuasion, which means you have to convince me first that there is an issue, and then you would ultimately have the burden of persuading me that a warrant should issue. So, sir, the floor is yours.
Yes, sir. I entered into a contract with a third party on January 12th to sell my business. And Mr. Henry works for or with that third party as a professional wrestling trainer.
As a professional what?
Professional wrestling trainer.
Okay.
Yes, sir. I am the sole leaseholder on the property at 1078 Citizens Parkway, Suite F in Morrow, Georgia.
Okay.
On January 28th at approximately 11:32 a.m., a cease and desist for a cancellation of contract was sent from my civil attorney to the third party, Mr. Gossett, to which Mr. Henry works for or with. The cease and desist was sent by email, which was verified, received by my attorney, and also to 5 addresses in the Atlanta area. I at 11:35 a.m. on the same date, 1/28/22, notified my landlord that the cease and desist had taken place. I notified him in person, and that Mr. Gossett nor anyone else was permitted on the property from that point moving forward.
And Mr. Gossett was third party.
He is the third party. He was the person that I had the contract with to sell the business.
Okay.
That was located at this address. In that contract, it stated that I was the leaseholder and that I was allowing Mr. Gossett to use my lease until he took over a lease and created a new lease for himself in June of 2022, which of course never happened. So I was at this time still the sole leaseholder.
And you said the sale was supposed to take place by June of 2022?
The contract that we entered into actually began on January 12th of 2022. I was allowing this third party to use my current lease on the building until June of 2022, at which time he was supposed to negotiate a new rate with the landlord and then take the building on a lease of his own at that time.
So when you bought the business, you took over the lease?
No, sir. I own the business. I'm the original owner of the company.
Okay.
And I'm the original leaseholder since December of 2017. I have held that lease. I held that lease until February 28th of 2022, at which time I ended the lease and the landlord took possession of the property back and then has then leased it on to another party.
Okay, go ahead.
All right. I notified my neighbors to the property in the adjoining buildings that this had happened, and that if anybody was to enter my building, if they could please contact me to let me know, as I had a cease and desist and nobody was to be entering the property. I got a text message at approximately 8 p.m. from one of my neighboring units, letting me know that there were 2 vehicles outside of my building, a white van and a black SUV, and that my building was open. I was at home at the time. I called 911 immediately and headed to the property. The call to 911 was placed at approximately 8:02 p.m. and I arrived at the property at 8:45 p.m.
Let me ask this question again, Mr. Borgia, and I'm sorry, because when you say like words like my building and then landlord and then lease, I'm trying to just understand ownership.
Okay, the landlord would be the property owner. When I'm referring to landlord, I will be referring to the property owner.
And when you say my building, what are you?
My building, I'm referring to Suite F at 1078 Citizens Parkway.
And that's property that you're leasing from the landlord.
It is, and that I have been leasing since December of 2017.
Okay.
Thank you, sir.
And I'm sorry, because these words, they do have meaning in the legal context.
Yes,
so
sir.
I have to make sure that I understand. So
Yes,
go
sir.
ahead.
Thank you, sir. So I arrived at
I was going to say, if you forgot where you were, you got a phone call. There are two cars at the property that you're leasing, and the property is open.
Yes, sir. I arrived at the property at approximately 8:45 p.m. The police were not present, so I called the police back, and they were redispatching the unit that had originally gone out to the property. I was told that unit arrived at 8:10 p.m. by the police officer, and that nobody was at the property, that they made rounds on the property and that nobody was there, and that the building appeared to be locked up, so they left. I had the landlord's keys, which I obtained that day when I met him, at approximately 11:35 a.m. And I attempted to use the landlord's keys to enter the building, and I could not. I went around to the reverse side of the building where the back door was, attempted to enter, and the locks there had been changed as well. I waited for the police to arrive again. In the meantime, a adjoining unit to my Suite F is a church, and I noticed that they were still there, and I asked them if it was possible for me to enter through a side door that was between my unit and theirs, but was locked from their side. I contacted the landlord of the property. He stated it was okay to do this, as long as they also approve. So I went through their building and I entered into Suite F. As I entered in, the door was barricaded from the inside, from the Suite F side. So entering into that property took me a few moments to get the door pushed open. The police officer then arrived at approximately 10 p.m. and at approximately 9:45 to 10 p.m. At that time, I had spoke to the neighbor came over. I was speaking to him. He stated that the SUV that was there was a black SUV, newer. I asked him if the windows were completely blacked out. He responded yes. At that time, I recognized the vehicle that he had described as a vehicle that I believe Mr. Ben Mark Henry drives. I let the officer know that I believe this was the case, that this was who had changed the locks on my building, and was not allowing me, was not permitting me in. And at that time, I asked the officer if she wanted me to, if it was okay that I call Mr. Henry to see if this was the case. I made a call at 10:04 p.m. and did not receive an answer. I then called again at 10:05 p.m. Mr. Henry answered his phone. I had the phone on speakerphone with the police officer present on body cam with his phone number showing. And the asked Mr. Henry stated, I believe the wording was, it's my understanding that you were at my building this evening with another vehicle. And he stated, yes, I was there and the locks were changed. At that time, the officer notated that he had admitted to changing the locks. And at this point, I attempted calling numerous locksmiths because I had no way to, once the building was locked up, to re-access it unless my neighbors were there. I was able to get a hold of a locksmith to come out and meet me the next morning, to which I did. The expenses for replacement of the locks, which I have a receipt for, was $737.20. I received text messages from Mr. Henry after the phone call at 10:06, 10:08, 10:09, and 10:10 p.m. The messages read, you cannot intimidate me. Ronnie has a contract as well. It is a civil matter. Nobody broke in. I have a key. And those were the correspondences after the phone call where the police officer was present. The police officer was also present when I received those text messages.
Okay. And I should explain to both of you. A lot of times I'll either put my head down or I close my eyes so that I can listen, because I'm listening. I truly am listening. Mr. Henry, Mr. Borger has laid out some claims, serious claims. Can you explain to me your side of this?
Yes, Your Honor, thank you. On January 12th, Mr. Borger sold his business, which is a professional wrestling training school and event center, to a third party. When he made that sell, he approached me and gave me a key and said, I have a provision in the contract that says that I can have a representative, and I want you to be my representative in any situation going forward, because I will not have access to the building. There were only two keys. One was given to the third party, the buyer, and then Mr. Borger issued me another key, and that was the only two keys. And he said that I was to be his representative going forward.
Let me stop you there. And we'll come back to this if we need to. True or false, Mr. Borger, what Mr. Henry just said?
True at the time, yes. Yes.
Okay. Okay. Thank you. Go ahead, Mr. Henry.
There were some differences or whatever that occurred between Mr. Borger and the third party. And apparently he just unilaterally declared the contract void, which was a sublease basically for the business, and we would maintain the, we would have access to the business and everything in there and assets, what have you. And he just unilaterally declared the contract void, and then changed the locks on his side after the situation I'm about to explain to you, and basically affected a self-help eviction. And he just has absorbed everything that was inside the building to his own personal use, including things that belong to me, including things that belong to the buyer, the third party. So on the night of the 28th, the buyer, who was in South Carolina at the time, called me and asked me to go down to check on the status of the building. I went down to the building using the key that Mr. Borger gave me, and I opened the building and I went inside. And inside, as it's an event center, it has a concession stand. The concession stand had a window, and that area had been blocked off by us. Someone had ripped that down and took the covering of the concession stand and threw it on the floor. I have a picture of that right here that you can see.
Let me stop you. Let me stop you, Mr. Henry. At this time, what relationship, if any, did you have with the third party?
I perceived him to be the owner of the business that I was going into.
But at the same time, you were acting as Mr. Berger's representative.
That's what he had told me when he gave me the key, Your Honor.
And you agreed to act in that capacity?
I was supposed to maintain, if I'm known to have a reputation of doing what is always right in every situation. So Mr. Borger trusted me to do what was correct if something went wrong, and he didn't have access to the building, and the new owner was trusting me to take care of things in his absence as well. Literally, both individuals told me to take care of any situation in their absence.
And the reason I'm asking that question, is I'm trying to decide in what capacity were you acting when you went in to the building? Like whose interests were you serving?
Oh, actually, I wasn't serving anyone's interest in particular. I was just asked to go down and check on the status of the building.
Did you call Mr. Berger? I'm sorry, sir. Berger. I'm sorry.
Sir. Yes, sir.
Mr. Borger was not part of the day-to-day operations of the school as it was, so there was no reason to call Mr. Borger because he was.
But you're his representative.
If something had gone wrong at the end of if something had gone wrong and he needed entry into the building, then he would come to me and I would allow him entry into the building.
So when you received a phone call to go down to the building, that wasn't an understanding that something was going wrong?
He asked me to go down to the building on almost a daily basis to check on things because there were assets and things inside the building. And he always wanted to make sure that nobody had broken in or nobody had gotten in or nobody had stolen anything out of there because there was food, there was equipment, there was all kinds of things. And the building did not have an alarm system on it. So he was constantly afraid that somebody could go in there and take things. Plus there was the shared entrance with the other building that we could not secure on our side.
Okay. And continue moving forward. And I apologize if my interrupting is interfering with your presentation of the evidence, but there are certain things I have a decision tree in my head that I'm going through. So that's where something comes up. I want to ask a question. And that's where I was asking with Mr. Borger about my building, landlord, and lease, just so I can get a clear understanding. But go ahead, sir.
Yes, sir. And so I found that someone had ripped the covering off of the concession window, climbed through it, and then unlocked the door from the inside out. With me being the only person having a key, and with with the third party buyer being the other person with the key, it became clear to me that something was terribly wrong at that moment. I then made a cursory look around the building, and I discovered an expensive piece of electronic equipment was missing as well. And I have a picture of that as well. But you can see that that's a plug-in right there where a light box would have gone. And so I immediately contacted the owner of the business and told him that somebody is inside the business and we're missing things. And so he said, well, I think we need to change the locks because I have a key and you have a key, and that's the only two keys. And someone else is obviously getting into the building somehow and stealing things. He asked me if I would wait for a locksmith. And so I told him, yes, I would. And I waited for the locksmith. The locksmith came in and changed the locks. We got keys that could be duplicated. I had a key for Mr. Borger if he wanted one. And we never at any time attempted to keep him from any of his property because he literally had the locks changed again within an hour, but he never asked to come into the building. The call that he is referring to literally was, he called me up and he said, hey, did you change the keys? And I said, yes, I did. And he said, just admitted that in front of a cop and then abruptly hanged up on me and didn't allow me any opportunity to explain anything. I had no opportunity to explain to him the theft. I had no opportunity to explain to him anything. We just had to secure the building. And by the way, all of this occurred after hours on a Friday evening. This wasn't even during business hours. This was after hours.
Let me ask a couple questions. What was your relationship with the third party?
He was a complete stranger.
And you were acting as Mr. Borger's representative.
As well, because he and I, we would go out, have breakfast, the kids would come over, we did things together. He was a friend of mine.
So you received a call from a complete stranger about a property that you know that Mr. Borger has an ownership interest in, allegedly, but you do not call him.
No, sir. What Mr. Borger had sold his business to the third party, and I was working with the third party as a trainer of the business. We were in possession of the business. Mr. Borger was not in possession of the business. We were in possession and operating the business. And then someone came in and started stealing things.
As far as you understood, what was the length of time that you were serving as Mr. Borger's representative? From what date to what date?
There was no set date on anything. I mean, that's just what both of them asked me to do. They both gave me unfettered access to make decisions regarding the building. And then he's also suing us. This is a civil matter, and he's suing us in civil court in Fulton County over this exact same thing.
So I'm going to make an analogy, Mr. Henry. Let's say you and I are roommates, and we have shared use of the refrigerator. And there's orange juice in the refrigerator that belongs to me, but it's in the common space that we both share. Before you started drinking my orange juice, would you get my permission, or would you just drink the orange juice?
I believe that the analogy, Your Honor, doesn't apply in this situation, in that Mr. Borger was completely removed. He wasn't a roommate anymore. My roommate was the third party, and he asked me to wait to change. And I mean, I didn't even change the locks. The third party just asked me to wait there to change the locks, and then it would be something that him and Richard would have to take care of on the other hand. I mean, there were only 2 keys. And so Mr. Borger had to come to me or the other owner to get access at any time. And I would have granted him access without question.
So I'm gonna tell you one thing, Mr. Henry, that I have to remind younger lawyers. Whenever a judge asks you a question, it's because the judge is looking for an answer. And when you don't answer the question,
My apologies.
so it's yes or no. And your answer is your answer. Would you drink the orange juice without informing me that you were drinking it? Or would you just, say, hey, Brad, I really want some orange juice. Is it okay for me to have some of your orange juice?
Well, Your Honor, if you had told me previously that I could have the orange juice, then I would drink the orange juice.
Correct. You, and as I understand, there is a understanding that you were the representative. If there is a problem such that you may have had an obligation to contact him with the problem, that somebody's coming into this space and this, because you didn't have the contract was not with you, it was with the third party. You place yourself in the middle between the third party and Mr. Borger, which as a lawyer, I would say is not a good thing to do. You only serve one master. You don't serve 2. So that you can represent whatever interest needs to be represented and there's no confusion at all. You get a phone call from a third party that you have self-described as a complete stranger. And there's a person that you have a relationship with that person spoke to you directly and you agreed to be the representative for that person. And this issue happens. I can't understand why you don't call. You got the call from the third party. Call the person that you said that you agreed to be that person's representative. You don't see that as something that maybe you should have done?
No, Your Honor, because Mr. Borger was not in possession of any of those items that were in there. Those items, to my understanding, legally were belonging to the third party because he was purchasing them. And Mr. Borger, all he had to do was just call me and I would have let him in because he never.
So let me
begin with.
Let me ask this question. When you agreed to be the representative, what did you agree in your mind that you were agreeing to do?
If something came up, that I would be fair and do whatever was correct at the time. And at the time, it looked like things were being stolen. And so he asked me to stay there and I waited there and a guy came in.
The third party asked you to stay there.
Yes, when we discovered things were being stolen.
And that in your mind doesn't squarely meet the definition of something has come up?
It was after hours, Your Honor. We were trying to get things, we were trying to secure the building. I was just trying to secure the building. Something was going on and I was just trying to secure the building. And he had given me permission to act how I saw fit when he gave me the key.
Was Mr. Borger paying you at this time to be the representative?
No, sir. And neither is the third party.
Mr. Henry, I can't give you legal advice, but if you take on a responsibility and you're not getting paid for that, you may not want to take on that legal responsibility. Does that make sense?
It does, Your Honor. I tried to operate in good faith throughout the entire situation. There was no criminal intent whatsoever.
I don't believe that there is criminal intent involved. I believe this was a case of miscommunication. If you're acting as, if I had a conversation with you and asked you to act as my representative and you said, okay, I would not be happy if something happened and you didn't call me about something that whether you knew or didn't know the full extent of the interest. I think it would be incumbent upon you to call both sides. Be above board. Hey, I got this call from the third party. They said something happened. I know you wanted me to be the representative. I'm calling you to tell you what happened so that if you need to call a third party, you know what's going on and you can call a third party. And I'm cool because the way that I hear it, you weren't getting paid by either of these people. And it begs a question of, why did you get out of bed to drive down there?
It was just something that they asked, the owner of the business asked me to go down there and check on the business to make sure that the assets were still there. I had items that were there. The building did not have a security alarm, and we were going to have a security alarm installed, but first we had to have the internet installed. So the assets were, in my observation, it was possible anybody could come in from the church and start taking things. People could come in through the back and start taking things. And as soon as I arrived, it was pretty clear that somebody had come in and started taking things. But Mr. Borger said that he trusted me from the very beginning to make these decisions. And so I made the decision, and Mr. Borger would have definitely been allowed to come into the building because that would have been the right thing to do. And I never would have done anything that wouldn't have been that wouldn't have been correct in the situation. He said he trusted me. He gave me a key. The other guy said he trusted me to stay on, and that's where I am with it.
And I understand, and I'll use this analogy. It would be 20 years that I've been married. In June, it'll be 20 years that I've been married. I have my own money. I can do whatever I want to do. My wife has her own money. She can do whatever she wants to do. But before I do anything that's going to impact any of us, I always have a discussion with her. I can go buy it if I want to and just tell her on the back end, hey, I bought this. But before I do something, I have the discussion. Because if she has a problem with it, it's better for us to have spoken about it before. And I may do the same thing, or she may tell me something that it's like, yeah, that's a good point, you know. But when you start doing stuff on your own, you put yourself in a position where you're going to get in trouble. I mean, and now I say trouble, there are going to be disputes. I'm sure that both of you gentlemen have better things to do on a Monday morning at 8:30 than to be here. A simple phone call may have resolved all of this, even though it was after hours. Mr. Borger, I do believe that this is something that fits within the civil realm. Because there's a live dispute as to whether he had authority to do this or didn't have authority to do this. I'll let you speak. But I don't, as I said before, I believe the best thing would have been to give you a call and to put it, at least you and a third party, on notice of this is what's going on, so nobody is getting confused. The legal standard as it relates to criminal intent is that it was knowingly, it was willful, and it was voluntary. And that gets you to criminal intent. I know I wasn't supposed to do this. I I willingly did it, and nobody forced me to do it. And so I think the criminal intent issue becomes a problem in this case. But I do believe, Mr. Henry, you didn't put yourself in some hot water. I believe unknowingly. But go ahead, Mr. Borger.
Yes, sir. There was an incident that happened on a date, I believe it was roughly around January 22nd, where I had to go down to the facility, meet with the third party, and Mr. Henry was there. The reason I had to meet with the third party was in our contract, and I'll read you a couple of things.
Okay.
It states exactly, seller agrees to allow buyer to use his current lease until June of 2022 and to provide buyer with a key to the building during the period to which seller is still the leaseholder, me, I'm still the leaseholder, and grant permission to the property landlord for the buyer to be on the premises at all times. That is a direct quote from our from our contract. There is nothing in our contract about a sublease. I would challenge that Mr. Henry makes the statement that this is a total stranger. And here's how. On the date that I went down to have a discussion with the third party, the regard to this discussion was our agreement was that any monies taken in for tuition or payments of students was to be coming to me through the period of the end of January, because I had paid in advance the January rent for him instead of him having to pay it out of pocket. So in return, all monies coming in were to come to me. Now, Mr. Henry was invited into the conversation. And during this conversation, Mr. Henry stated that he told students or pieces of people that should have been paying me not to pay me, and that he had also told them not to contact me. And Mr. Henry is shaking his head, but I have this on recorded audio, so I have 100% proof of exactly what I'm saying. So he had told students not to contact me. He had told students not to pay, at least one student not to pay me. In this recorded audio that day, Mr. Henry said that he would pay me himself for that student's tuition, who was a student at this third-party school that Mr. Henry was training at. So why would Mr. Henry be paying for a student to be there for the third party if it is just someone that he doesn't really know? He may not have known him very well when the contract got enacted, but Mr. Henry was running the day-to-day operations of the school for Mr. Gossett, which included opening the school, training students, closing the school. And this is something that was acknowledged that day on recording. So Mr. Henry, even though he states that this was a third party that he didn't know that well, when I gave him, Mr. Henry, permission to act on my behalf, the purpose for giving him permission to act on my behalf is because I'm relocating to the Virginia, Washington, D.C. area. And when I relocate, I would need a third party to be able to handle any matters or something that comes up during that point in time. I have not left yet. I'm still in Georgia. During that conversation as well, where we were all three present and I audio recorded the conversation, I stated in front of both of them, the third party was supposed to get me a key and had been failing to do so. And so it wasn't that Mr. Henry was given a key and if I needed to get in, that he would let me in. The third party was supposed to get me a key and on recording acknowledged such fact. And so the fact that Mr. Henry is making the statement that he was given a key and that anytime I wanted to get in, all I had to do was contact him is false. That was never something that was stated. I was supposed to receive a key from the person that I sold the business to, and he failed to ever get me one. The reason I met the landlord on January 28th was so that I could get a key to the facility, because I had up from January 12th, they had failed to even give me one. Now, Mr. Henry that day in January paid me 2 payments for 2 students that were attending training that day, and one had attended training the day before. He made those payments to me through a online app during that time that I was still present there. So the fact that he would claim that he didn't really know this person that well, and him acting on my behalf was specifically acting on my behalf when I left, and I have not left yet. And the fact that he would state that I was trusting him to handle things that I could handle for myself at the time, because I had direct contact with the buyer, I didn't need him to handle those things. I didn't ask him to handle anything until such time as I was going to be leaving the state, which will be now in June of this year.
There's, just so you know, Mr. Borger, the way that I'm analyzing this is that I'm accepting that there was an agreement between you and Mr. Henry. And I'm accepting that Mr. Henry probably, from what I've heard today, in my opinion, may not have lived up to that agreement. That does not rise to the level of criminal intent. But it does potentially have an issue where he agreed to do something that he didn't do, and you may have been harmed by that. So it's maybe a bailment or whatever. It's getting into various areas of civil law, but that's why I say with Mr. Henry, it's like you're not getting paid for taking on an obligation that if you don't fulfill that obligation, you can get sued behind that. That makes absolutely no sense to me, but people agree to do it. I don't believe that Mr. Henry acted in this situation with the requisite level of criminal intent such that a warrant should issue. I believe the fact that he had, I'll call it a side deal or whatever, but he had an understanding with third party, and he had an understanding with you. And he placed himself in a position where either way this goes, he could be responsible for civilly responsible to the third party, or he could be civilly responsible to you because he made agreements. And you can't make an agreement, not live up to the agreement. Another party is harmed and then say, well, hey, it was complicated. Yeah, if you agreed to it, you, as they would say, you assume the risk. So, Mr. Henry, I don't need you to respond to what Mr. Borger said, because it's not sort of germane to where we are. But moving forward, Mr. Henry, if you're not a person that's in the middle of the agreement, don't agree to do anything without knowing all four. We call it 4 corners of the document, and that's basically what a contract, because piece of paper has 4 corners. So when there is an agreement, that agreement is what everybody has to abide by. Only way you don't abide by the agreement if somebody's put a gun to your head and told you to sign the agreement. But if you agree to do something, you got to live up to your agreement. Mr. Borger, because there's enough information in my mind that criminal intent becomes an issue. This is not a matter that I believe would lead to the issuance of a warrant for someone's arrest, but you may have a civil remedy available, definitely against Mr. Henry, and I don't know as it relates to the third party, because it's what I think happens a lot. What I see, nobody believes in common courtesy anymore. Mr. Henry, it would have been common courtesy to pick up the phone and call Mr. Borger and just to say, hey, look, I'm filling you in. This is what's going on. But to say, well, he told me I can do whatever I wanted to do. If he says, well, no, I didn't want him to do that. You now have to prove that you had permission to do whatever it is that you did. And if you can't prove it, and it's a lower standard than in criminal cases, you may be held responsible for any damages. They talked about having to get the locks changed and all that kind of stuff. You may be responsible for repaying him for that. So, Mr. Borger, do you have any more questions?
No, sir.
Mr. Henry, do you have any more questions?
None whatsoever. Thank you, Your Honor.
Thank you. Both parties can be excused. That appears to end this calendar. Mr. Farmer, hold on.